Hi, this is Chris Poor with Assured Information Security, and in this video I'll be going over the IQ Data tab. So for this one, it gives you a chance to work with signals, uh, see what's out there through the inspection, record them, play them back, analyze them with this viewer down here. And let's just get into it. Select a radio that you have plugged into your computer. I got a B210 going. One nice thing to do first is to launch some of these inspection flow graphs. And for these, the way they work is if you double click on them, you will see some settings here that get, these are just parameter values for GNU radio flow graphs. So they're actual parameter blocks. They're called parameter blocks. So when you launch the flow graph with Python, these are optional arguments that get passed into the flow graph before it runs. So it's a way for me to change the serial number and the channel. So when I hit start, it'll run the flow graph in a whole new window here, something of the GUI. And when I press a button on my remote here, actually I have an X10 remote at like 311 megahertz. And I can change sample rates and whatnot. So when I press the button, you'll start to see signals going on. I can change the gain. So I like this flow graph because I get kind of a snapshot of not only the individual messages, but I can see all the messages. I can see bursts. I can stop it while it's going. So this is like one big burst of an X10 message. You kind of have a wake up portion followed by a gap and the bits there. But you can see down here how they all kind of get sent together one after the other, and you can look at all this timing information. That's why I like it so much. And you can quickly just change frequency and stuff. It's helpful for TPMS signals too, because they transmit like once a minute, so you can change the number of samples and stuff that's going on just by middle clicking and adjusting the value. So that is an inspection flow graph. You can run different types. So maybe you want to look at a waterfall. This is a little different than the TSI tab. This is kind of getting a closer look at your signal once you know what it is. You press the button. There's some signals going on. So there's a lot of different things you can do. You can, do instantaneous frequency. There's a lot I'm not including here, but anything you use to inspect the signal, you can make a flow graph for that you like, put it in here, send it to me, I'll put it in here. So that's the idea behind that. You can record signals. So if I go back to that frequency, I can change some settings by hand. You can select your sample rate. You could say I want 2 million samples, so like 2 seconds or 1 second worth of data. Click record, and I press the button. That's me turning a lamp off. You can kind of see the gain's not very high for this message, so if I like tweak it up, hit record, press the button again, that's a little better. I'm in the dark here. Let me turn this lamp back on. There we go. So once you record the file, you can start to analyze it. You can look at it, press different buttons, look at the magnitude, zoom in, plot just, a piece of it. There's a cursor where you can click different points. It'll draw these lines. It'll measure samples. You will get a range. You can plot just that range. And if you're loading a huge file, I skip samples so I don't flood memory with all these samples. So like I drop 99 out of 100 samples here. You don't need to see them when it's zoomed out like this anyway. You're not going to really miss much. But if you zoom in, you can kind of tell that they're not all there. Excuse me. Yeah. So if you're recording a signal, you look at a spectrogram, FFT, there's different functions you can do. You do like a moving average or whatever you see there. Some custom function that you want to try out, you can write code for. There's a Morse code analysis going on. I'll get back to that in a second. But so once you record something, what you might want to do is isolate a signal. So I kind of already did that here. And you can crop it with just a click of a button. Just crop, creates a new file. Here's the original. Here's the crop version. And you can play it back. Click these buttons to just copy over the same settings you had in the record tab. Hit play. Turn my light off. I'm in the dark. Turn it back on. So that's helpful when you're trying to figure out if a message has encryption on it, if it has timestamps or sequence numbers or things like that, where if you replay the same message, does it do something or will it be ignored and dropped if you just send a repeat message? It's important to know that kind of information when you're reversing something. What else do we got here? We got crop. I can convert different data types. So if I have like one file and one data type, I can convert it to a new file, give it a new name, and change the data type. It'll create it. I can append two files together. So if I want to put zeros at the end of a file or at the beginning of a file, I can do that by checking this button here. So if I have my message, my cropped signal, let's say I want to add 100,000 zeros at the front of it. Let's give it a new name. Append. When I go to plot it, you'll see all the zeros added to the end of it. So that's helpful if you just you need to space out your messages in time. Like if you're putting this file on repeat, you want to replay it every second or something like that, you can put like a second's worth of zeros at the end of it. There's transfer. That's just copying files. I might just get rid of this tab. It's not that useful. Time slots. I use this for Wi-Fi. Like if I want to send something to like a point-to-point device at a specific interval, a specific time slot, I can save a string of messages from GR-IEEE 802.11 that get saved one after the other in bursts, and I can go in and detect the start of a message and space them out. And that's how it works. And I can copy the same message 10 times and something like that. Overlap, you can just add two files together. Might be useful, might not be. Resample, uh, give one file just as a conversion to give it a new sample rate. OFDM, this is kind of a just an experiment. I was looking at Wi-Fi data and I was trying to do some OFDM analysis on it. It's probably not useful for most people. It didn't do what they want it to do. It didn't do what I wanted to do. So that's kind of a work in progress. Normalize. If you have a file like this, you can normalize the data. You can give it custom values if you want. Let's try it out. So like if I say minus 10 to 10 for some reason, click normalize, and just replace the file. So hopefully I did it. Plot it again, and you'll see 10 minus 10. Okay, that's all those tabs up there. I was mentioning Morse code data. So I have something that generates this file. I have an attack for it. And you click Morse code and it decodes the message. I tested it on CTF data for like B-sides and GNU radio. It does work. Some people generate Morse code differently. So there's a little gear here and there's different options for Fissure in the IQ Data tab. And you can change the Morse code settings I got here. So there's an amplitude threshold that gets kind of drawn across an AM view of the signal. There's a tolerance of like 5%. Because you got to imagine if someone's sending Morse code, like if they're doing it manually, there's going to be some error between each one of these. But it can't be huge, but you can say like 10%, 20%. And generally there's like international Morse code or different standards, and they have these spacings. I've seen at certain CTFs that instead of 137, they might do like 159 for different between words and between letters and stuff. But this lets me just change it, and I do a moving average of the data to smooth it out. You can adjust that. What else you can do? You can look at some other signals I might have here. There's polar plots. It's useful for radar data. Let's just download that right now. We'll get into this archive a little later. All right. So I can plot this. So this is log video data from a radar. It's got a different data type. I think it's just in 8s. Yeah. So if I plot all of it, if you click end here, it actually gives you the last sample. I plot all of it. It's not skipping any. Click polar. And it might take a second. But there you go. You got radar data. Polar plot of an actual radar. Of an airport radar. So, I mean, I can do all kinds of radar analysis on data. I've done it before. I usually do it in MATLAB, but there's no reason you can't do it in Python and put it in here to print out like pulse widths and pulse repetition intervals and all that stuff. All right, let's go back. You can change the data types of what you're loading. So this is an int 32 for this message. This file is a face of a person there. So yeah. This is a J2497 message from an FL2K dongle. So that's a int 8. If you want to see what that looks like, there you go. And if you don't select the right format, it's going to look wrong. So if you go back to like a normal complex float 32, it's, garbled mess. So this viewer is helpful for knowing if someone just gives you a file and they don't tell you what format the data is, you can go through and cycle through these things until you get something that looks right. In the future, I'm going to do more metadata for saving files. Like when I record, I might have a SIGMF file associated with it, and you can probably view the contents of that file down here or something like that. You can let's go back. You can enter values. So like if I record this file at 1 megasample per second at 916 megahertz, I'm going to build in filtering, which will take in these values, which you kind of need to filter sometimes. But I can also do things like load it up in GQRX without having to specify those values. Hit play, and there's the signal replaying itself. Maybe you have a larger file with more signals going on. You can do that quickly. But yeah, I could have shortcuts to other programs that load in IQ data. Just click a button, whatever you like. Just tell me and I'll do it. Some programs don't let you load in files from command line, which is kind of what I need for it to work. But for the ones that do, I will do that. I will add more functionality to this and make it do more things. That's it for the IQ data tab.